Hi guys, so this video is going to be about managing your eating disorder, or how we're all coping with our eating disorder with this whole corona chaos that's going on and everywhere going into lockdown, and just how this might be affecting your eating disorder. So from my own perspective, I can see a few ways how this coronavirus and this lockdown situation is affecting the eating disorder. So firstly being the outside world feels very, very out of control. It feels very, very scary. I've got no control over it, and because of that, I then want to use my eating disorder as a way to control something where everything feels so out of control. And as we all know, eating disorders are typical for people where they feel out of control. Controlling their food feels a way for them to control something. So that is one way I can feel how the eating disorder might be starting to resurface, wanting to feel like we've got some sort of control. And also from my own perspective, when I think to focus everything on losing weight, getting thinner, things like that, it's a way for me not to have to think about the real world. So when the real world feels very, very scary, I can focus everything on trying to lose weight because I don't have to think about anything else, and I can just think about that, and that is what I know, that is safe, and it's like a default button. So that's one thing. The other few issues that I feel people may have is exercise. So with the whole lockdown thing, feeling like they can't get the exercise in, feeling very stressed that you're going to be gaining weight. I feel that. I get what you're feeling. And the other thing is, so around safe foods, being able to buy your safe foods from the supermarket, because as we know, like if we're in England, the supermarkets got stripped of virtually everything. And what we're going to do if we can't get our safe foods, like I've been there, I've been looking on eBay to find my safe foods, you know, I'm going through this. So I just wanted to do this video to talk about these issues, how maybe we'll get through them, what helps, what won't help, and just how we're getting on. So I've watched a few YouTube videos, read some articles on how people are coping with the whole eating disorders in the coronavirus situation, and some of them, yeah, helpful advice, but some of it I just feel like I just cannot relate to. And you've got people saying, oh, you know, you can't relapse, which I totally get. We should not be relapsing, and we need to keep progressing our recovery. We need to keep challenging ourselves. For me personally, this whole situation now is not going to be me challenging my eating disorder. I'm not going to be, you know, tackling new fear foods, tackling different things. Great if you can. Keep going if you're able to do that. That's great. But for me personally, now is just a matter of managing and getting through day by day. And I wanted to do this video because I felt like a lot of the videos out there were saying, yeah, we need to keep doing this, we need to keep doing that, and I was like, I just can't relate to that, because right now I just feel like I just can't do anything and I'm just struggling to survive. And I just wanted to do this video to show that those people aren't alone. Like if you feel like that, you feel like, God, I can't progress my recovery, I just want to manage, like that is totally okay. It is okay right now just to be managing. So that is really why I wanted to do this video. So for me right now, my overwhelming feeling is fear of weight gain. I feel like because I'm being locked down, because I'm just in this different situation, that I'm going to gain so much weight. That is my number one overwhelming feeling. And with that, the temptation is then to want to try and restrict food. And like if you're feeling like that, I totally feel what you're feeling. I totally get it. You feel out of control. You just want to restrict food just to make sure that you don't gain weight in this new situation where you may not be able to be exercising like you used to, or you just feel out of control, so you need to restrict to stop yourself losing weight. I totally get that. I feel it. I haven't restricted. I have found it really hard. So like with my breakfast this morning, so I filmed a clip from my breakfast this morning, which I'll just put in now. So with being stuck inside, feeling on lockdown and feeling you need to restrict, like I get that, I totally get that, I feel like that. So this is my breakfast: scrambled egg with some cereal. This is a breakfast that I was having pre-corona. And the temptation is to think, okay, well, I'm having this breakfast, I'll cut out the cereal, because the cereal was an addition anyway, so it's not it's not calorie counted. I just have it as extra. And I was like, okay, well, now I'm in lockdown and I'm going to be gaining weight, I need to cut out the cereal. But this is where you have to start thinking, no, that's the pathway that I don't want to go down. That's starting to restrict. And then once you start to restrict, it's a very, very slippery slope. And once you start doing it, you can find that you can't stop yourself. So when you want to take things out, do the opposite and leave it in. I know that's really easy just for me to sit here and say it, but this is coming from someone who is having that same exact thought, those immense fears of, oh my God, I'm gaining weight, I'm locked, I'm allowed, I can't exercise, I'm going to gain weight, I need to restrict, I need to control the situation. I'm feeling all of that, and I'm still going to have the scrambled egg and the cereal. And yeah, I feel horrendous for doing it. I feel guilty, I feel fat, I feel lazy, my mind is going 10 to the dozen. But this is also the point where you have to remember that anxiety doesn't increase forever, and there is a point where it will settle down. So yeah, we will feel really, really anxious about this right now, that we're not leaving the little bits out, the little bit of restrictions that we can. But if we don't do those behaviours if we don't cut the food out, then we don't associate those behaviours with the relieving the anxiety. And that's ultimately what we want. We don't want to associate a ED behaviour with relief of anxiety, because that's not really how it works. It doesn't relieve anxiety. It's just a short-term temporary fix. So in this whole corona chaos, when you want to restrict, please, I say, it is so hard not to. I totally get that. But we have to just try and do the opposite to what our head is telling us, because our head is the ED telling us we should be doing that. That is not us telling us we should be doing that. So we have to acknowledge what our head is telling us and then try and do the opposite, because the ED head is wrong. And yeah, it's blooming hard, really, really hard. But it's ultimately going to help us in the long run. And yeah, we're going to feel rubbish for the short term, but fighting against anorexia is uncomfortable, whether it's corona or not. We have to be prepared to feel uncomfortable. And yeah, we're going to probably feel more uncomfortable right now with everything that's going on. But as I've said, this situation right now with corona is short term, but a life with anorexia is long term. It is, your life can be gone with anorexia. And for the sake of not cutting out little bits of food here and there, it's worth not having a life lost to anorexia. You can see the temptation is with fearing of weight gain and feeling like we're stuck inside, that we need to be restricting little bits. And for me, it's cutting little bits out here and there that you think won't really notice. But I've been really trying not to do that, because as I said in my clip from my breakfast, it is a very, very slippery slope once you start doing that. And once you start cutting bits out, that then becomes the norm. And you then think, right, well, if I cut that out yesterday, then there's no way that can come back in. And you start cutting out more and more. And then when coronavirus is all over and we're back to normal, you're going to then have to start to try and reintroduce that food, because this is just a temporary situation, because this is a new situation which we're not used to, which we've never experienced before. It doesn't mean we have to start restricting to compensate for it, and we just don't. We really, as hard as it is, and I know how hard it is, you really just have to try to stick to your meal plan, what it is that you're meant to be eating, because in 5 years' time, you're not going to be thinking oh, I'm glad that I, stopped eating those, I don't know, my morning snack because Corona was on, like in 5 years' time, you're going to be more happy if you've been able to maintain your eating habits and then get back into your life when Corona is over to pick it up from where it left off, rather than taking 10 steps backwards and having to go through what you've already gone through, all that hard work you've put yourself through to get to the point where you're at now. If you start taking things out of restricting bits of food, you're just going to have to go through that all again, and it's just wasting more time. And that is one of the biggest things that is keeping me going right now. So when I feel the overwhelming urge to restrict, to exercise, to want to lose weight, to just resort back to my eating disorder, I'm trying to remind myself of where I, like in 5 years' time. In 5 years' time, well, not even 5 years' time, like in a year's time, I'm not going to be thinking, oh, I'm really glad I started to restrict and I lost weight and I've had, losing weight is not going to make us happy. It may feel like a temporary fix for the situation right now, but it is not going to solve anything. And I totally get that this whole situation is very, very anxiety provoking. It is, every single person in the world is feeling anxious and stressed right now. And obviously when we have an eating disorder, we have a maladaptive coping strategy to cope with that anxiety. And I can promise you that losing weight, restricting exercise, it is not going to solve the problem. It is a temporary fix. It's with anxiety, as I've said in many of my videos before, anxiety increases, but it doesn't increase forever. At a time, it will plateau. And if we interrupt the increase in anxiety with an eating disorder behaviour, so like restriction or exercise, and then the anxiety comes down, we then associate that behaviour with the reduction in anxiety. But in actual fact, the anxiety will stop itself. We just have to trust it and sit with it. And it is so uncomfortable to sit with the anxiety, but it does stop. And then that's how we start to learn that we don't need to do those behaviours to reduce the anxiety. And I totally get that right now you just want to restrict and not gain weight and try and maybe lose weight. I totally get that, but I promise you that restriction will not solve anything. And you'll come out of Corona, if you've lost weight, you may be ill, you'll have to regain the weight, you'll have to go through everything you've already been through again. You won't be able to continue living your life like you want to. You'll have to start from the beginning again and work back up to it. I want to be able to come out of Corona, pick my life up where it left off, be able to go out with friends, do all the things I wanted to do with friends, be at work, just be normal. I don't want to be trapped in my eating disorder again for however many more years, because that is what's, as I said, that's what's keeping me going right now. When I think, look, I'm 31, I lost virtually all of my 20s to my eating disorder. If I let Corona slip me back now, I could lose all of my 30s, and that is just a complete waste of a life. As I've said, this situation with Corona is temporary, it is short term, but an eating disorder is not. An eating disorder can last a lifetime. It can ruin your whole life if you let it. And if we let it come back in now because it's preying on our vulnerability when we feel anxious and stressed, it could last for more and more years, and that is what we totally don't want. So I urge you really to, when you've got that urge to take out bits of food, you have to think, that is the eating disorder. Do the opposite action to what the eating disorder says, and yet you will feel stressed, you will feel anxious, you will feel guilty, but you can ride out those feelings, and ultimately going against the eating disorder is what we need to be doing. And also what I'm trying to keep saying to myself is, what's the first thing you want to do when lockdown is over, when Corona is over? What's the first thing you want to do? And it's things like go out with my friends, go on holiday, whatever it is. And then thinking to myself, well, is restricting, exercising, losing weight and going back to my eating disorder going to help me do that when this is all over? No. The answer is no, it won't. The eating disorder, going back to the eating disorder behaviours, is going to take us further and further away from what we want to be doing when all this is over. We have to remember that. And when our head is telling us that we need to restrict, we need to be exercising, we have to try and remind ourselves that that is the eating disorder saying that to us. It is the eating disorder saying that we can't cope unless we restrict, unless we exercise. That is not us, that is not Bex, that is not you thinking that. That is the eating disorder, and that is the eating disorder controlling our thoughts. And if in any other situation in life someone was trying to control your behaviour, like with this whole lockdown thing, we don't like that someone is controlling us, that we can't go out and do what we want to be doing. But that is what the eating disorder does with us every single day, day in, day out. It is controlling our behaviour. We are not living freely. We are living in lockdown with the eating disorder. So we just have to try and keep reminding ourselves when we know that the eating disorder is telling us these things, we have to remember that these are not our thoughts. These are the eating disorder trying to control us. And the eating disorder is manipulative, lying and wrong, and we have to do the opposite action to what the eating disorder says. I also feel quite guilty for this fear of weight gain feeling so very important to me right now, when the whole world is struggling with this corona, which is killing hundreds and thousands of people, and there's me sitting here thinking, well, I'm just scared of gaining weight. Like, because some people have said to me, this whole corona virus and everything that's happening, it must really put into perspective to you how unimportant, like, the numbers on the scales are. And I'm like, but no, like, my weight now feels more important to me than has done in many years. Like, it feels so important to me now. And that does make me feel really, really guilty. Like, how can I be so preoccupied with my weight right now when everything's going on and people are saying, this should just show to you how unimportant weight is. And if you feel like that, I want you to know that you are not alone in feeling right now that weight is very, very important. I mean, right now, my fears of weight gain are stronger than my fears of corona. And yes, that's probably very, very wrong for me to be thinking like that, but an eating disorder doesn't just switch off because something happens. And I'm not saying this to, I don't know, like, reinforce an eating disorder. I'm just saying this so that because I feel very guilty for feeling like that, and I think, oh my God, like, how can I feel like that? I'm just sinful and horrible person. And I just want to share that feeling in case someone else is feeling like that to you, for you to know that you are not alone. And it just shows how, like, much an eating disorder affects your head, your thinking, how powerless we are to an eating disorder when it's in our heads. And it's like people say when they go on holiday, like, you don't just switch off from an eating disorder when you go on holiday. And this is no real different situation. You can't just switch off an eating disorder because something bad in the world's happening. It doesn't work like that. Like, if it did, none of us would probably have ended up in this situation, because we'd have been told, you're going to end up very, very ill with an eating disorder. Okay, something bad's going to happen, so I'm going to not have an eating disorder. Like, it just doesn't work like that. I'm sure many of you have been told how much damage you're doing to your health. I mean, I've been told, you're dying, you're going to die because of your eating disorder, but you still then think, yeah, but how much more weight can I lose? That is the eating disorder. So something bad happening, it doesn't just switch it off. And I'm just saying this because I want you to know that is, not that that's okay, but that's normal for you to be thinking like that when you have an eating disorder, because it doesn't just switch off, and you shouldn't feel guilty for feeling like that, because that is the nature of an eating disorder. But we just have to try and, as I say, manage it as best we can in this whole situation. And yes, it may not be about challenging and progressing our recovery right now. It can just be about managing, but I would urge you to try to manage it. And yes, that you have to then be prepared to sit with feeling uncomfortable. And one of the big things I'm finding really, really difficult with this whole lockdown thing is the exercise. So feeling like I can't exercise like I normally have been. And I'm finding that so incredibly difficult. And I know there's advice out there, use distraction techniques, it's okay to rest. I think for people with an eating disorder who regularly engage in exercise, it's potentially a little bit unrealistic to expect someone to not do any exercise at all. I know I couldn't, not just from an eating disorder perspective, but also because I was an athlete trying to train to compete in the summer on the track. Like the whole not exercise situation is very, very difficult. Obviously, if you're in England, we are allowed out for our one exercise session a day, which I have been going for a walk with my mum, which I was normally doing every single day anyway. But I think it's just the fact that we feel like it's being restricted, and that then feels very, very scary. I mean, my exercise routine is probably no different to what it would have been normally, except that I can't go out and do my normal track training sessions. But because there's a very, very slight change and there's this rule, my head's just spiraled, and my head is telling me, because of this lockdown, because you're so scared of gaining weight because of this, you fear you're going to gain kilos and kilos and kilos, you need to be exercising all day, every day. That is what my head wants me to do, and I'm getting very, very anxious that I'm not doing it. What is helping me is I'm being very, very accountable to my mum. I'm lucky that I live with my parents who can kind of keep control of that situation. So my mum is very, very good. I am allowed to exercise in a normal and acceptable amount. If I'm thinking, oh, I want to go out and walk for an extra hour or do this at home, my mum is not letting me. And okay, not everyone has parents that they live with who they can be accountable to, but I think if there is someone out there who you can just text, a friend or anyone, or a message, just who you can be accountable to with your exercise, that can really, really help. And also I think there are some online groups. So Beat have an online like web group which are running every day, which can be really, really helpful. You can get support from other people there. Also, you do not need to be working out every single day. That is completely unrealistic, and people shouldn't be working out all day. Like, people should not be working out every day. I've done a sports science degree, a sports science master's. I know that exercise every day, well, like a workout every day, is not very good. Rest days are important, so I would just suggest, allow yourself rest days. If you want to do some exercise, maybe use your one exercise session to go for a walk, which you're probably doing anyway. If you want to do something else like yoga, stretching, Pilates, that sort of thing, which can also help to maybe de-stress you a bit, and just really ignore those Instagram videos, which I personally am finding very, very hard to do, because they are just everywhere on my feed. Where I look, people are doing these videos and I'm like, oh my god, I need to be, like I said, my head is telling me that I need to be exercising all day, and if I'm not exercising all day, then I need to be restricting. But this is again where we have to remind ourselves that this is the eating disorder trying to control us. This is the eating disorder saying these things. It is not us. And we will come out of this corona and we will go back to normality. And if we give in to the eating disorder now, we will then be trapped, locked back up in our prison cell of anorexia, and that could last for years and years and years. With the whole exercise thing, our bodies are our own bodies. We have to do what is right for our body. And yes, all these other people can put these Instagram videos up saying they're doing these workouts. Okay, they can do that, but I know that that is not what is right for my body. And also, we don't gain or lose weight based on what other people are doing. So yeah, all these other people may be exercising more. Like, I see so many people now out running as well. And I'm like, well, you wouldn't normally have been running. You've just decided to start running now. And I'm like, oh, I should be doing all this exercise as well. But we don't gain weight based on what other people are doing. We don't lose weight based on what other people are doing. We have to do what is right for our bodies. We have to be kind to our bodies. And wherever you are at in your recovery right now, you have to do what is right for your body, and that is not exercising like all these people are putting these workouts up. That is not going to help. So just please, I know how hard it is, like I really, really do know how hard it is. And that's where people say, you know, these distraction things can come in helpful, which is great if distraction works for you. Often distraction techniques are things like something arty, something crafty, and I am totally not an arty or crafty person. So I've always found these distraction ideas not very helpful. Like I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't knit. You know, I tried to cast on and I couldn't even cast on, so knitting was definitely a no-go. You know, I'm just not one of those people. So I do find distraction quite hard. They also say reading, that can help. I don't mind reading, but right now I just feel like I can't do anything. I've got no motivation to do anything. I can't be bothered to read. The only distraction that's working for me is watching TV, watching like just easy, not requiring much concentration TV, watching things on YouTube. I absolutely love Nikki Graham. I have loved her since she broke onto the scene back in like 2007. So I found loads of YouTube clips of Nikki Graham to watch on YouTube, and that is the sort of thing for my distraction that will help. So yeah, if you are arty and crafty, great, distraction like that can help. If you're like me and you think all these people that suggest these distraction ideas, they're just not for me, I feel you. But if it is just, you know, watching, I don't know, something on TV like The Chase, if you're in England and you know The Chase, or A Place in the Sun, just these really just easy watching TV things, they can be a good distraction. So what I have actually found has helped me in the past, say if you're feeling the urge to exercise, or you're feeling the urge to restrict, or you're just feeling really, really stressed, really, really anxious, writing it down I have found has helped, particularly if you don't feel comfortable talking to someone, or you haven't got someone to talk to. I've found that when I've written it down, I'm kind of able to then put it in perspective a bit more, and as I'm writing it I can kind of counter argue it. So I can write down how I'm feeling. Oh, I'm feeling really, really stressed, I want to exercise. And then I can think, actually, but will exercise help me? No, it probably won't. Will exercise get me the life that I want? No, it probably won't. Will exercise actually solve the problem? No, it won't. It's just a temporary fix. So that is what I've found has helped. I have found in the past writing down to really, really help, particularly if you don't want to talk, or if you haven't got anyone you really want to talk to. I would recommend writing it down, because then you can put it into perspective and you can counter argue yourself, and you can kind of question your thoughts. Another big thing that I've been struggling with is feeling unproductive. So I normally, obviously, I go to work, and then on my days off I am generally quite productive. I like to do things, I like to be productive. And since this whole corona thing, I've been like, I just can't do anything. I just can't bring myself to do anything. I've lost all motivation, all anything. I just can't do anything. I've just found, like, you know, I'm just scrolling through social media, or just can't do anything. And I would really say we should not be putting pressure on ourselves to be productive. It is okay not to do anything, and that it is a perfectly normal reaction. So I was reading an article yesterday, and it was saying that actually the feeling of exhaustion and not wanting to do anything is actually a reaction to trauma. So because we can't actively fight the virus, and we can't escape it, our bodies then the only alternative is for our bodies to like play dead. So we just lose all our energy, all our motivation, because our bodies are kind of like shutting down, because the fight or flight response doesn't work for this situation. So our bodies are kind of playing dead. So it is totally normal not to be productive, and don't beat yourself up for that. That is perfectly normal. And like Nicola Sturgeon said, I don't know if you know Nicola Sturgeon, but the Scottish minister, She said, everyone right now, lives have changed. No one's life should feel normal. And if it feels normal, you're doing something wrong. So it is totally, totally okay to not feel normal right now, to not be doing your normal routine. That is okay, and don't beat yourself up for it. It is okay not to be productive. I'm just going to touch on now a bit about safe foods and what if I can't get my safe foods, what if I can't get the food that's on my meal plan. I know how you feel. So for my lunch when I'm at home, I like to have crackers and cottage cheese, and went to the supermarket a week or so ago and all the crackers were gone, and I was like, oh my god, what the hell am I going to do? I can't have my lunch now because I can't have the crackers that I normally have. And my mum was like, we'll have to try something else. And I was like, I can't. They are the crackers that I have and I can't have anything else. So I went online, I went onto eBay, and I was searching for these crackers. I was like, I need to have these crackers, otherwise, you know, my world's going to come to an end. So I found these crackers for like 10 times the price. My £1.25 box of crackers was selling for about £10, and I said, right, I'm gonna have to buy them. And my mum was like, don't be silly, you can't spend £10 on a box of crackers. And I was like, I need them. Like, my stress levels were through the roof. I decided to wait a day. I had a spare box anyway, so I didn't need them urgently. So I decided I'd wait a day, and then when I got home from work the next day, my mum said, I've bought you these, and there was a different type of cracker. They were like a corn thing, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't want them because I can't eat them because they're not my normal lunch and I can't have them. And mum was like, well, just try it. So I thought, no, I'm not going to. And then I thought about it, I was like, I can just try, I suppose. So I tried one, and I was actually, these are actually really nice. So the moral of the story is, yes, we have our safe foods, yes, we have our meal plan foods, but we have to plan for alternatives and backups. And actually, these alternatives and backups can open us to a new world of food. And yes, it may be very, very scary, but I saw this this thing online, and it was like the 5-5 rule. The 5-5 rule. So if you're not going to remember this meal or this food in 5 years time, don't spend more than 5 minutes worrying or thinking about it. And I thought, actually, that's quite, yeah, it is easier said than done, but it does kind of put it into perspective. Like, in 5 years time, am I really going to remember what I ate for my dinner one day in the corona lockdown? Probably not. And Beat have got some really good advice. So they've said to try and like talk to others about sorting out your meals and what foods and alternatives you can have, and then kind of traffic light system them. So green are foods that they're like your safe foods, what you can eat comfortably. Amber are foods which you're okay eating, but they're quite challenging. And then red is like really, really difficult foods. And so then you can work out, based on these traffic light systems, what different kind of support you'll need. So if you've got a meal that's, you know, green, you're probably going to be okay. But if you've got a meal that's a mixture of amber and red, you're probably going to need a bit more support around that. So that was I thought, some really useful advice. With this whole getting your food, getting the foods that you want, feeling able to eat the foods, having your meal plan foods, I totally understand the stress. As I said, I've been there. I've been on eBay looking for it. I feel how you feel, but we can get through it. And also, I've also thought there would have been a time with your illness when you would probably have been scared of most foods, and you will have slowly been able to increase the amount of foods you can eat. And that's the same, like, you've been able to do that in the past. You've been able to slowly grow your eating repertoire. Like, you were probably scared of so much in the past, which you can now eat okay. So it's like that now. Yes, there are foods that we are scared of right now, but the only way you're going to break those fears is if you eat them. And I totally get how scary it is, and a change of routine, and it's not on your meal plan. So yeah, just plan alternatives. And it is hard, you know, for the first meal that you're going to try. But like I said, I tried those new like rice cakey things that my mum brought, and actually I really like them, and now I'm probably going to have them more often. So you may find that you're able to find that as well. If you can't have your normal safe food or your normal dinner, you've had to try an alternative, you may actually find that it's okay. And like with the 5-5 rule, if you're not going to remember this meal in 5 years time, don't worry about it for more than 5 minutes now. So as I said at the start, this video isn't really just about me giving you coping strategies and how to deal with this whole corona chaos, because like the other videos are saying, like, do this distraction, do this, do that, right? Like, great if that works for you, but as I say, for me right now, I do feel like I'm really struggling. My head is going crazy, and I just wanted to do this video for me to say it is okay to feel like that, and you are not alone. But really we must try to restrict the urges to give in to the eating disorder. And I know how hard that is. I do like the restriction, the exercise, I know it. As I've said, I've given you in my video already, like, I'm just trying to give you the motivation to try and not give into it and try and put it into a bit of perspective, which is what I'm trying to do for myself as well. But I haven't got all the answers because I'm living it right now as well. I'm struggling right now as well. I'm just saying what I'm trying to use to cope just a little bit, which, as I say, is trying to really constantly remind myself that I don't want to lose any more time or any more of my life to my eating disorder. And yes, slipping back to the eating disorder right now may feel like the answer, and it may feel like the way to cope, and it may feel like the way to prevent weight gain. But deep down, we know that that's not the answer. Deep down, we know that that doesn't make us happy. And we don't want to lose more of our lives to an eating disorder that just really makes us feel rubbish and ruins our lives and doesn't make us happy. And yes, it's a temporary fix to the anxiety right now, but it doesn't stop the anxiety. Everyone right now, everyone in the world is stressed, is anxious, and is scared. That's not to try and downplay how you're feeling or how we're feeling with an eating disorder, trying to cope with it, but it is just to try and say everyone is struggling, and our eating disorder is a maladaptive coping strategy, and it doesn't help. Just really try and remind yourself that when the eating disorder is talking to you, we have to do the opposite action, and it is the eating disorder trying to control us, and it is not going to get us the life that we want. And what I've also found quite difficult, so is a lot of people on social media people with eating disorders have been saying, you know, I can't cope. I can't go into this whole situation without resorting to eating disorder behaviours. I can't follow my meal plan. I'm really struggling. And I found this really hard, because I felt like, well, if you're telling yourself that before you've even tried, what do you expect? I mean, if Boris Johnson or whoever the leader of your country is was stood up saying, we can't fight corona, we can't get enough ventilators, we haven't got enough capacity in the hospitals, we can't get a vaccine, we can't deal with it, we can't treat it, we would all feel utterly helpless, and we would think, what's the point? And it's no different with an eating disorder. If you're constantly telling yourself that you can't do it, that you can't not restrict, that you have to exercise, that you can't not exercise, that you can't not engage in these behaviours, if you're telling yourself that all the time, then of course you're not going to be able to, because you're telling yourself that, you're going to believe it. We have to at least try, and at least try to think, okay, this is going to be really hard, and I really want to restrict, but I'm going to try not to. We have to be willing to try. We can't just say, well, I can't do it, so that's it, I just can't do it, so I'm going to restrict. Like, you have to try it. And I know it is so hard, but we do have to try it. And that is what I've also found quite difficult on social media, is a lot of people just saying they're resorting to these behaviours, and it's like, not saying that they haven't tried, but just that, I mean, they've said it before anything's even happened, and I have found that hard. And I know it's easy for me to sit here and say, well, you have to try, but this is coming from someone who right now is struggling and who is really, really trying, and whose head is telling them to go back to those eating disorder behaviours, but as of yet hasn't, because they're really, really trying not to, and they're sitting with all these horrible feelings. Because ultimately, as I say, we have to keep reminding ourselves of our long-term goals, of what we want in the future, of how hopefully in 2 years' time, Corona will be a thing of the past, a distant memory. But if we've given into our eating disorder behaviours now, the eating disorder is still going to be there. So I just want you to know that you are not alone, and we will get through this. And please, please, please do not let Corona set you back in your eating disorder recovery. It is okay not to be progressing, but please, please, please don't let it set you back, because you'll only have to go through all this again. And I hope in me saying how I've been feeling, the stresses and the worries, like the not feeling productive, like the feeling like scared of weight gain, wanting to exercise, I hope if you can relate to this, hearing me talk about it has helped you in some sort of way. The Eating Disorder Charity Beat, their website has fantastic resources on there. They've got like a coronavirus section, which can be really, really helpful. As I mentioned earlier, they also have online chats, helplines, webinar type things, which support groups, which are really, really, I've logged onto them a couple of times. I've found them quite useful just to talk to other people going through it right now, supporting each other, not getting sucked into this exercise of social media, to all these people on social media saying, oh, I can't do it, I can't cope, I'm resorting to these behaviours. I don't need to know that right now. I need to try and we need to be getting ourselves through it. We need to be helping each other. Yes, we can all be struggling, but keep trying, keep remembering that this situation is short term. Corona, lockdown, this whole situation is short term, but an eating disorder is not. I hope this has in some way been useful to you. Oh yeah, and some of the other guidance is write a routine. If that helps you, do it. If writing a routine, I personally, as I say, a lot of this advice I haven't found helpful. I don't particularly find it helpful writing a routine. I just, as I say, right now, there's nothing I want to be doing. There's nothing I feel I can do. So scheduling a routine where I do this at this time and this at this time, that's not really helpful to me. But if it's helpful to you, great, do it. But yeah, as I say, leave any comments if you want. I will try and respond to them. I'll try and help you in any way that I can. I'm sorry if this video didn't give you the answers or wasn't very helpful, but I really hope, just keep on going. We are all in this together. We can get through it. And the eating disorder is not the answer. And yes, it is so very, very hard right now to not give in to it and not listen to it. But we have lived a hell of a life with an eating disorder. We have lived through hell. If we can get through an eating disorder, we can get through this, and we can do it. Keep believing in yourself. Keep going, keep trying, and this will finish, this will end. And hopefully we can pick our lives up back where it left off, then get back onto progressing our eating disorder recovery. You can do it. I believe in you.